911. What's the location of the emergency?
Sandy Hook School. I think there's somebody shooting in here. Sandy Hook School.
Okay, what makes you think that?
Because somebody's got a gun. I saw a glimpse of somebody. They're running down the hallway.
Okay.
They're still running. They're still shooting.
There's still shooting going on. Please.
All right, what about injuries at this time?
Excuse me?
What about injuries at this time?
I don't know of any injuries right now.
Okay, where are you in the school right now?
I am in the school. I'm in the classroom.
Okay, do you have everyone in the classroom and the door?
All of my students. The door is not locked yet. I have to go.
Okay,
I have to go lock the door.
Tell me, keep everybody calm, keep everybody down, get everybody away from the windows, okay?
Yesterday I tweeted about a man named Jeremy Richmond. Back in 2012, Jeremy's 6-year-old daughter, Avielle was her name. She was murdered in the Sandy Hook school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. And for the last 7 years, Jeremy and his wife and the families of all 20 of the children and the 6 adults who were shot and killed in that massacre, these people have had to endure 7 long years of harassment. It has been an absolute nightmare of relentless attacks from angry internet trolls and these people who falsely accuse them of all being a bunch of crisis actors. Jeremy and these other parents have, I would assume most, if not all of them, have post-traumatic stress disorder. They have been perpetually victimized by these internet conspiracy theorists, people that have been sending them death threats. They've been cyber stalking them, gang stalking them in real life, online, offline, doesn't matter. These people are crazy. Some of them have even gone to their children's memorials, to their grave sites and to memorials, and desecrated them. All because these extreme conspiracy theorists believe that the parents and the families who are saying that they lost children, they're all part of a vast diabolical conspiracy theory. So sadly, Jeremy Richmond, he couldn't bear anymore. He couldn't take any more of this. And a few days ago, he committed suicide. And his death took place the same week that 2 of the students who had survived the Parkland, Florida school shooting, they had also committed suicide. So I've got this issue on my mind, the issue of internet stalking and trolls and the damage that people can do who think they've got it all figured out, and without sufficient evidence, take their ideas and their conspiracy theories and become dangerous. I mean, and harass and stalk people to the point that that the people just can't take it anymore, especially people that are already suffering from a significant trauma. I have PTSD from an event that I went through earlier in my life. It's not an easy thing to deal with. So I empathize with these people. First, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the issue. Then I'm going to play about 5 minutes of clips from Alex Jones, and then I'm going to come back and we'll talk about it some more, okay? So yesterday I had mentioned on Twitter that Jeremy Richmond had committed suicide. He was among a group of families that is suing Alex Jones. They're seeking compensation from him in court for the role that he played in a lot of the suffering that they have experienced since the 2012 massacre. As I wrote yesterday, this is a complicated issue. It is complicated because we're dealing with the issue of free speech. And here in the United States, perhaps more than any other country in the entire world, we fiercely believe in protecting free speech. Even if it is controversial speech, even if it is speech that you don't agree with. For example, I would love to talk a lot more about the issue of transgenderism, but I don't dare. Not anymore. Not on YouTube, at least. You can't talk about it. They'll shut you down, give you community standard strikes. It's very difficult to talk about Zionism. This is preserving free speech is a very important thing. But not all speech is considered free speech. And the families that are suing Alex Jones understand that. What they are suing him for is defamation. Not all speech is protected speech. You cannot legally use your speech to damage another person or their reputations. This is why we have defamation laws. Defamation laws that address the issues of slander and libel. So let me define these terms for you. Defamation is the act of damaging another person's good reputation with lies or innuendo, something that does damage to another person's reputation. This can be done through slander, which is the crime of making false verbal statements against another person that are intended to damage their reputation. For example, Jason Goodman is currently being sued by multiple parties. He's in the midst of a number of court cases right now because of accusations of defamation. Other parties saying that he has not simply reported facts, but that he is engaging in defamation. And I'm aware of other parties that are considering suing Jason Goodman for defamation. You simply do not have the right to continuously lie about another person and damage that person's reputation, because that can lead to a loss of income, which is partly why Goodman's being sued by Robert David Steele. It can damage personal relationships, which I think is among the reasons that Dave Acton, George Webb's brother, is suing Jason Goodman. So you cannot slander someone and damage another person's reputation and simply say, I'm protected because this is free speech. That is not the case. Likewise, defamation can be done in the form of libel. Libel is defamation in print, whether it's like, newsprint, like, in the papers, or digital print, like on, say, CNN's news site, or even blogs. If it's written, a written false statement that damages reputation, that's libel. So, for example, we've got the Covington Catholic school kids, right, who are suing the Washington Post and other newspapers for printing false stories about them, for saying that they were harassing a Native American man in Washington, D.C. It did damage. The false stories did damage to these kids and their families. Because you can say, well, it's free speech. No, it's not free speech. Because free speech that weaponizes people, that is false and damaging to a reputation, results in things, for example, like these kids and their families have received death threats from liberals all around the country, talking about how evil they are and how they ought to be shot, and just harassing them. These liberals who really bought into the CNN story and all the other media stories that these Catholic kids in the red MAGA hats were up there harassing a Native American. When information came out later that completely refuted that, showed additional video evidence and testimony proved that the story was completely false. So people on the right, especially Trump supporters, I know that you understand this issue, because I know that you totally support the idea of these Covington students being able to sue CNN, right? If you are to be logical about this and consistent morally and intellectually, then you have to understand that when Alex Jones engages in defamation that damages other parties, they have the right to sue him as well. And you can't just say it's free speech. Otherwise, you need to drop your arguments that you make about CNN. If that's your argument, fine. CNN has the right to say anything they want, whether it's true or not, and face no consequences for it, no matter how damaging it is. Okay? Are you starting to see how you got to be fair? The door swings both ways here. So the Sandy Hook families are suing Alex Jones for defamation. And he truly did say some very outrageously false things. Said a lot of stuff that was not true about the families. It damaged their reputation severely. And in looking at the case, from what I have seen so far, I feel pretty doggone confident that the courts are going to end up ruling in the favor of the families, not so much out of political correctness, although I think it's fair to say that there's going to be, that influence. But the case against Jones really is clear cut. I mean, it's open and shut. Defamation cases aren't always easy to win. It can be difficult because you have to prove intent and other things. But the case against Jones is pretty strong. He repeatedly brought multiple Sandy Hook conspiracy theorists onto a show that had millions and millions and millions of views every single month. Okay? This guy had a huge platform. And together, Jones and his guests slandered the families and the dead children, and committed libel because a lot of this is being printed on InfoWars. Alex Jones showed photos of the children. He said that these kids either never existed or, yeah, these are pictures of real kids, but these kids are not related to the crisis actors who are posing as their parents. Jones and his guests even put out a lot of personal information about some of these families, well beyond what would be reasonable for, a standard journalistic report. In other words, InfoWars doxed innocent families who had lost kids in a mass shooting. And as a result of this, the Alex Jones InfoWars audience carried out dozens and dozens and dozens of attacks on these families. Just went after these people savagely. So yesterday, I wrote on Twitter this. Let me read the quote. I said, "This is a complicated issue. Controversial speech must be protected. But when a person with great influence over a large number of followers essentially weaponizes them against innocent people, in this case, grieving families, there are legal consequences. Trolls can do real harm." Now, some people with differing viewpoints expressed, different ideas, and that's fine with me. But some of the people wrote some things that, quite frankly, really pissed me off. Not just because of how dumb the statements were. Oh, Jake, you must work for whoever. You have this opinion. That means you're getting paid by, government. You're part of the conspiracy. I mean, just stupid things. But the other thing that upset me about it is how mean-spirited some of the comments were that the people were making. So naturally, the people saying these mean things, they all have the same thing in common. They use anonymous profiles. And why do they do that? It's because internet trolls are loudmouth wimps. They're paper tigers. They're really no different from those kinds of cowards that will, mouth off, but, talk real tough. But instead of coming at you from the front, they'll sneak up behind you and take a cheap shot, or they'll sucker punch you, because they know that if it's a fair fight, if they go toe to toe with you, they're going to get knocked on their, hot pocket stained couch potato butts. And they're cowards. So the people that are attacking me over my opinions on Sandy Hook, these are the same cowards, same type of morons who are attacking the Sandy Hook victims because they think the Sandy Hook families are all crisis actors.
Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. I knew they had actors there, clearly, but I thought they killed some real kids. And it just shows how bold they are, that they clearly used actors. No one died in 2012 in Sandy Hook. It shows no homicides in that town. You're really sure, though, nobody died? It was a total cutout.
I'm telling you, nobody died. It is the filthiest, the most deplorable school that I, as a principal, have ever seen.
Sure, it was only used as a cutout. It had been closed until right before they reopened it for this event.
You said on your radio show that it wasn't real.
Yes, there is video and audio of me saying I can see how people don't think it happened, and I can see how people think it's synthetic because there's been staged events before. Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. This is what I'll say about Sandy Hook. I legitimately questioned it when people brought up anomalies. I then had debates about it on both sides. The internet pushed me to keep covering it. I probably covered it 20 times in the first few years it happened. And the internet didn't believe some of the things about Sandy Hook.
Of course.
But then about a couple weeks into it, my listeners and others start sending me all these anomalies and things. And later it turned out some of those anomalies weren't accurate. A certain percentage of people are schizophrenic.
Exactly.
And then they just think everything's a conspiracy. You're going to thank the government, and you're going to cower when the police in black uniforms come and give you the shots forcibly. Oh, yes, you're going to love it. And the cops are going to take all the shots and die, too.
This is the thing about conspiracies. It's very attractive to people that are schizophrenic. Schizophrenic people think everything's a fucking conspiracy from top to bottom.
And you can tell they're government operatives. They've got, like, evil in their eyes, hardcore. I mean, their real spirit is, murder Africa, invasion force, release us. Scanning, control, manipulate scientific data, take over, blast, control, world government.
Every single interaction that people have is some sort of a stage event that's trying to take them down or control this or mind control that.
Bill Gates, that piece of garbage, and all the stuff he's done to innocent people makes me want to throw up.
That's a big factor in a lot of this conspiracy theory shit, is mental illness.
Oh, yes! I kind of realized a few years ago that I kind of had my own mild psychosis, in that when you've been lied to by the media and the culture so much over and over again, everything then starts becoming automatically, you're sure it's fake. And then everything you see fits into that. Humanity will crush you. I love it. They're weak. And the minute we reveal them, their destruction begins.
That's a problem with all this conspiracy shit, right? Because the conspiracy theory stuff, the people that want to believe, they believe in conspiracies with everything.
I'm going to shoot you up with something that's going to kill you dead in a hammer. How's a 30-year death from gut disease sound, African children? Roll up the sleeves. I'm a little chicken-neck bastard, and nobody's got the will to see what I am.
There's a bunch of things going on. One, it's a story that attracts people's attention, right? A story of a guy who's saying that people didn't get killed when they did get killed. And it's horrific for people to look at. It's horrific to people to think about, that their own children would not only get murdered, but then someone would accuse them of being a crisis actor. And the families are getting the threats, and the families are getting the attacks, and the families are getting called crisis actors.
I knew they had actors there, clearly, but I thought they killed some real kids. And it just shows how bold they are, that they clearly used actors.
Well,
like, I didn't mean it to be hurtful. I didn't mean it to be incendiary. I was legitimately questioning, as the internet was, and I've seen a bunch of other stage stuff. We know we're under attack. We know it. We're breaking the conditioning. We're coming for you, globalist. Coming for you. Oh, boy, I tell you, we're going to get people awake to you, you bastards. I was covering what other people were saying. Then they say more people are showing up in Connecticut. More people are coming to their houses, which they are.
You believe Sandy Hook happened?
Absolutely.
You believe Sandy Hook happened?
Absolutely.
You believe Sandy Hook happened?
Absolutely.
So because the large platform that Jones has, and because a large segment of Alex Jones' viewing audience tends toward not really doing any kind of real research. They'll call it research. They say, I've done research. Really what they're doing is engaging in confirmation bias. They will only look at those video clips or those blogs or whatever that reaffirm their own confirmation bias. And if they are faced with anything that conflicts with their theory, they dismiss it outright. So because of that, a lot of this stuff about Sandy Hook quickly became this seen as foundational evidence, proof that Sandy Hook was a fake event and that no children were killed. Now, I'll tell you, I am not dismissing at all that there are things about Sandy Hook that are very weird. There are things that I still don't have answers for, that I question. And I do not rule out the possibility that Sandy Hook was used in some way to further an agenda. But that is very different from having the opinion that none of it occurred, that the whole thing was a false flag and nobody died. It's the same kind of people said the same thing about Las Vegas. Oh, it's all a false flag. Nobody died. They're all fake bodies, or they were all crisis actors pretending to be dead, but nobody actually got shot during the Las Vegas massacre. Which is absolutely, totally untrue. I've interviewed the families of tons of people who lost loved ones. I met some of the families in person and interviewed them when I was working on that case. So several people yesterday, when I started talking about Sandy Hook on Twitter, they pompously said, oh, Jake, you ought to do more research. Because their opinion was, if I would just do more research, I would come to their conclusions. I would conclude that they are right and that Alex Jones was right, that nothing happened at Sandy Hook. But just the opposite is true. If you know anything about me, I research. And I don't care so much if it confirms one theory or another. I will go whichever way the evidence goes. So years ago, I spent considerable time investigating some of these Sandy Hook anomalies. For example, we've got the strange behavior of Robbie Parker. Robbie Parker is the man who was seen laughing just before appearing on camera, and then was crying during the interview on camera, talking about the loss of his 6-year-old daughter, Emily, right? You guys probably know the video I'm talking about. Well, Alex Jones mocked this guy, mocked Robbie Parker, accused him of lying about his daughter's death, and he based that on the strange behavior that seemed to be displayed in the matter of, I don't know, maybe about 20 or 30 seconds. As Robbie Parker is walking out with some other people from the church where they were just having a prayer together, they come out, and somebody says something to him, which kind of brightens up his face, and he smiles and says something back. And then he goes and says, well, let's get started. And then he goes before the cameras and takes a deep breath and has a clear shift in his behavior and his disposition, right?
Situation like this, I remember at Virginia Tech when I went out there, parents, loved ones of slain young people wanted to remember their sons and their daughters, and as a result they spoke and made a statement. So we'll see if Robbie Parker, I assume he's going to come out to the microphones now and make a statement. Looks like the family is there and they're getting ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen in.
Okay. So my name's Robbie Parker. My family is one of the families that lost a child yesterday.
And then you've got parents laughing, going, ha, ha, ha. And then they walk over to the camera and go, early on I said, well, they had to have killed somebody. I mean, this doesn't make sense. Then parents come out and start laughing and then turn to the camera and cry. I mean, this stinks to high heaven.
Now, when I first saw that clip that Alex Jones was using, which is one that I think most of you have seen as well, I also thought the behavior was unusual. It's not like I watched it and thought, oh, this is totally normal. No, I thought it was unusual as well, and I said so. But I didn't jump to this obscene conclusion that Robbie Parker, because he smiled and then displayed grief within the same 60 seconds, that therefore means he is getting paid by the government to pretend like he lost a daughter in a mass shooting event to justify a government gun grab. The clip that was used by Alex Jones only showed the moments just before the camera started rolling, and then the first few moments after Parker started his statement. And there's one jackass channel on YouTube that took just that part, you know, like I said, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and cobbled it together, looped it together, and put it up as a video. There's tons of, if you type in Robbie Parker on YouTube, you will see video after video after video after video of people mocking him, calling him a liar, a crisis actor, saying that this is all fake. So he goes and he stands before the camera. When I saw the Alex Jones clip, I thought, you know what, maybe this guy did whip up some tears here. Maybe this is just for show. I couldn't tell. But unlike the people who rushed to judgment based on that little clip, what I decided to do was watch the entire video. Because the whole thing is about 18, 19 minutes long. And I also did some looking into who Robbie Parker is. Robbie Parker, the real person, is a 30-year-old, or at the time of this, back in 2012, he was a 30-year-old physician assistant working at Danbury Hospital. This guy had dozens of professional colleagues that he worked with at the hospital that knew him. He had scores of personal friends. He had a massive church community. He was very active in church. Tons of people knew him, had known him for years. He had just hundreds of former classmates going to school, large family, you know, huge network of, like I said, friends, church members, all of these people who know this guy every step of the way through his life. When you have that many people that can confirm everything there is to know about you, it's a real stretch to ignore the testimonies of hundreds of people that know an individual and say, nope, Alex Jones knows better. Alex Jones knows that this guy is a mysterious, shadowy figure who came out of nowhere, and he's a crisis actor. It's simply not true. Robbie Parker is a real human being. Anybody with the slightest bit of intelligence who looks at the social network and the history of this guy, the lifestyle of Robbie Parker, how public and open this guy was, you see he's just a regular man. This is not some crisis actor. But let's look at the evidence, right? The clip of him smiling. So I went and I watched the entire 19-minute video, not just a couple of seconds that the conspiracy theorists use. And I'm going to put the link to the full video in the video description. That way you guys can see and verify for yourself. What I saw, and what I think anyone open-minded is going to see when you watch this clip in its entirety, is that this man is traumatized to his core. And he is doing everything he can to try and keep a strong face on and make it through this interview without totally breaking down. I mean, you can feel the emotion and the turmoil in this guy when you watch the clip. So as you watch the video, you'll see, I mean, his whole body shakes at times as he struggles to maintain his composure. And you can tell that he's a Christian. He tries to say positive, reassuring things as he goes through. When people, say, "How are you dealing with this?" He tries to remain positive. Maybe he says it partly for the sake of the other families because he knows that they're listening. But I suspect that at least in part, he's saying this stuff to keep himself from breaking down in tears.
My daughter, Emily, would be one of the first ones to be standing and giving her love and support to all those victims. Because that's the type of person that she is. Not because of any parenting that my wife and I could have done, but because those are the gifts that were given to her by her Heavenly Father. Emily's laughter was infectious, and all those who had the pleasure to meet her would agree that this world is a better place because she has been in it. As we move on from what happened here what happened to so many people, let it not turn into something that defines us, but something that inspires us to be better, to be more compassionate and more humble people. Let us please keep the sentiments of love that we feel for our families and the compassion that we feel for others, even complete strangers, and keep them with us at all times, not just in times of sorrow and tragedy. And may we do this so that we can better all of our communities, in all of our cities, in all our states, so that we can make everyone, everywhere in this country, feel safe. I'm proud to say that I'm a physician assistant, and I work in the Danbury Newborn Intensive Care Unit. I'm 30 years old. Thanks. The best thing that I can think of to do to move on is to help other people. When you help other people, you feel better about yourself. And the more people help other people, then the more people are blessed. And when your life feels blessed, you feel like you can take on the world. You know, you can never stop being the best parent that you can be. You can always be better. You can always be more patient. You can always be more loving and understanding and willing to accept your children for who they are. I really hope that as I continue to be a dad to my two children, that I can just, if anybody looks back on my life, the number one thing that they can say about me was that I was a great dad and that my children loved me because of the father that I was.
You've got parents laughing, going, ha, 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 and then they walk over to the camera and go,
I mean, think of it. This man's precious little first grade daughter had been shot to death. Can you imagine? I've got, my youngest right now is 8, but I've raised 8 kids. And I think about this. Can you imagine, those of you who have had children, having to go into the morgue and view the lifeless body of your own 6-year-old daughter that was shot to death? And then within a few days, go out in front of national media cameras and talk about how you feel about this, knowing that you are on live before millions of people. Don't you dare tell me that you would have done any better than Robbie Parker did. You don't know what you would have done. You don't know how you would act when you're under that kind of emotional stress. So what if he mixed in a couple of emotions in there that seem not to go together? Who cares if the guy was awkward in front of the camera? You watch the interview, he didn't just smile right there at the beginning. Interspersed throughout the entire interview, in between the tears, in between the choking up, he'll flash an occasional fleeting smile. He is flip-flopping back and forth between extreme grief and trying to keep on, a positive face. Trying to keep from falling to pieces in front of everyone. So again, I encourage you to watch the entire interview. You'll see what I mean about this guy having genuine emotions. Don't simply watch the cherry-picked part of it that the conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones uses and then turn a blind eye to the rest of the interview. Now, some of you are going to say, well, yeah, I watched it, but the guy is, he's able to do that because he's a crisis actor. He's a well-trained actor. First of all, that's not what a crisis actor is. Crisis actors, there are real jobs called crisis actors. These are not people that are trained in, like, as thespians, as theater students. You don't go to theater school to become a crisis actor. These are just basically stand-ins for medical personnel or military where they get to live action role play how to handle either emergency situations or whatever. Yeah, they'll go out there and they wear the fake blood, and sometimes the crisis actors are even people that are missing limbs, and they'll dress them up and make them look like they lost a limb so that the paramedics getting their training can come in and it's more realistic for them. But these are not thespians. All right? Which is what a lot of people try and make it sound out, to be, that these are just great Oscar-winning, Academy Award-winning actors. That's not the case. But people are going to say, oh, well, he's just a great actor. He's just a well-trained crisis actor. Yes, he's getting all choked up, but that's only because he's really good at faking it. All right, brainiacs. If your position is that this guy is such a masterful actor, he is so well trained, explain to me why it is that Robbie Parker, this highly trained actor, would walk out in front of a crowd of reporters, in front of a throng of video cameras, and with the bright lights glaring at him from mere feet away, somehow, despite all his training as a crisis actor, he would forget what he's supposed to be doing and start laughing instead of pretending to be a grieving parent. You really think that? You really think? Are you conspiracy theorists so lacking in logic that you can't figure this out? You mean to tell me that Robbie Parker, the guy who has dozens of people who can account for his activities, at every major moment in his life, somehow Robbie Parker manages to get secretly trained as an amazing actor. But when the time came for his big performance, he forgot to pretend to be sad and laughed instead. I swear, you people. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, there is a less stupid explanation than this guy being a secret government paid actor who is trying to fake us all out with dead children so that he can help the government take away our guns, which, by the way, this is 2019, 7 years have passed. If they were going to go to this much trouble, had they grabbed the guns? No. And it's not like you needed to wait 7 years to figure this out. All you had to do was look at the evidence back in 2012 at the time, and any reasonable, rational person who wanted to know the truth would have easily figured out the truth back then. But Alex Jones and his viewers, who love a good conspiracy, they dogpiled on this guy, on Robbie Parker, and on his family. You know what else they did to Robbie Parker? Jones and his viewers, they found a photo. You guys remember this? Found a photo of Robbie Parker and his wife and their 3 girls. And they're sitting there. And on the end of the picture, the family picture, is Emily, the 6-year-old who was killed. And they say, oh, she's photoshopped in the picture. And because she's photoshopped, because Emily was photoshopped here, naturally that means Emily never actually existed. She's a fake child who never actually existed. They just found a look-alike, and they photoshopped her in. And this is all part of this, majorly huge conspiracy to trick the American people so that the government can take our guns. And there are blog posts out there and social media messages that perpetuated this story, that savaged this family. This talking point in support of the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory about, this picture, this continues to be pointed to as proof that Sandy Hook was, as Jones put it, a completely synthetic, manufactured event where no children died and which was just brimming with conspiracy crisis actors. So, what is the simple truth about this picture? Yes, the picture of the Parker family was photoshopped. So what? It wasn't photoshopped for the reasons that the conspiracy nuts claim. The Parkers went out, they took multiple photos of their family, like a lot of people do, they wanted to send a picture of their family to friends and family members in their annual Christmas card. So they go out, they take a bunch of pictures, and as anybody with multiple young children knows, it is nearly impossible to get all of your kids to smile and look at the camera with their eyes wide open, all at the same time in the same shot. If you can do this, you're a better man than me, because I sure can't get my kids to all conform like this. None of the photos that the Parkers took out there turned out to have all of the kids smiling, all of them looking at the camera. So you know what they did so that they could send out a decent Christmas picture to their families? They cropped out the photo of Emily where she is looking at the camera, and they superimposed it over one of the pictures that was a little bit better where she's not looking at the camera, and they made the group shot look better, and that's the picture they used for their Christmas card. Guys, is that really such a dark conspiracy? I've done this myself many times over the years. Here's a picture of my kids. This is way back in 2004, I think it was. I think it was 2004. My wife and I had 3 kids at the time. We went to Olin Mills. We got professional photos done for our own Christmas card. And got some shots done, got some prints, but I also paid for a CD with the photos. I took it home, looked at them, and I thought, you know what? I want to have a picture with just me and the kids, and one of just my wife and the kids. Shots that we didn't have taken at the studio. So as you can see in this example, I photoshopped my wife out of the photo and moved the images of my kids a little closer together. You can see the modifications I made. I removed a thumb, removed a hand, added some extra color to shirts to cover up, people that were there. I had to enlarge the picture of my daughter in the front to take up more space to cover some of the stuff I couldn't Photoshop out. And as our family grew to 8 kids, it became nearly impossible to get a photo of all my kids looking at the camera at the same time with their eyes open. There's always at least one kid that's making some dumb face, trying to be funny, that ends up ruining the shot. I finally get everybody to look at the camera, smile, eyes open, nobody's blinking, and there's that one kid that's got his tongue stuck out. I have photoshopped these group family photos many times in my family over the years. Does that make me a crisis actor? Neither was Parker. The photoshopping of their family picture, that is not proof that they are part of some great conspiracy to grab guns. That is not proof that Emily never existed. Can you imagine if you were the Parkers having to hear this crap? Some maniac out there shoots your little girl to death, and instead of being able to grieve the way any parent ought to have the right to do, you instead have to deal with Alex Jones out there savaging you, doxing your family, his viewers out there sending you death threats for your alleged conspiracy. Imagine that you go and you bury your little girl, and hordes of wacko internet trolls email you and message you and tell you how much they hate you, that you and your entire family, you're all going to hell because you're government crisis actors. Alex Jones mocked Robbie Parker directly, by name, said he was a method actor, that he needs to be investigated because Parker and his co-conspirators were, quote, coming for our guns. So when claims are made that are untrue, that are harmful, that is not free speech. That is defamation. Defamation can do damage on its own, but it also can weaponize people who are susceptible to that kind of influence, especially people with low IQs. And I totally respect people who like conspiracy theories. I love conspiracy theories. But you have to admit that there are a lot of people who do believe in some pretty stupid conspiracy theories who are rather low IQ individuals. They lack the ability to use logic, to use reason, and those people can end up doing even worse harm to the targets that are being defamed than the person doing the defaming. So years after the 2012 shooting in Newtown, trolls continued to attack Robbie Parker. The New York Times reported about an incident in October of 2016 when Robbie was walking to a hotel. He was on his, I think he was going to meet his family or something. They were traveling. But anyway, some jackass approaches him on the street, recognizes him from having seen him on InfoWars, and goes up to him and asks him, "Hey, did you lose a child at Sandy Hook?" And Robbie says, "Yes, my daughter was shot and killed." And Robbie Parker, being the decent human being he is, reaches out his hand to shake the man's hand, thinking maybe this is someone there to express some kind of sympathy or whatever. But the guy refuses to shake his hand and instead starts cursing at Robbie, yelling at him loudly about what a liar he was, how evil he was, calling him a damned crisis actor. "You're trying to take away my Second Amendment rights." Followed him down the street multiple blocks, yelling at him. Can you imagine if you were Robbie Parker, what life would be like living like this year after year after year after year of these heartless, evil people doing this to you and your family?
This is a photo taken of Robbie Parker at his daughter's funeral. And just ask yourself one question. Is that the kind of look of someone who just lost his daughter? Is that how you'd look? How many pictures do people have to see? How many interviews of this entire town not shedding a single tear for all those kids who were murdered? Just look at that. Not a single tear. Look at the interviews. I've not seen the word loosely. And see if he's a father who lost his child or someone just at absolute happy looking smirky grin. Man, this is just some sick stuff, man. But at least we can sit there and call him on it. At least we can be the honest people in the world and say, look at that. That's not right. That these people are fake crying, from Obama to all the people who allegedly lost their children.
I know a few of you watching. Most of my audience, you guys are great. The overwhelming majority of you are wonderful. You would never do such things, but there is a segment of every viewing audience, mine included, that has these kinds of cruel, stupid people that do these kinds of things. The kind of people who would harass the families that lost kids. The kind of men out there that hide behind, internet troll usernames, who would go and harass the fathers of dead children. These fathers who are suffering from PTSD as a result of their children being killed. People on the verge of suicide, just trying to hang on. And these trolls will go out and try and push them over the edge. I mean, truly disgusting human beings. And there are plenty of them out there. And I know they're out there because I hear from them on a daily basis. I hear from them. They say the same crap about me. Very hate-filled people. Well, I can say this. I am glad that the world has people like Robbie Parker in it. I am glad that there are men out there who can, even in the worst circumstances, the most heart-wrenching, terrible circumstances, find things to be grateful for. Find things to smile about. Things to thank God for. Even when they've had a terrible loss like this. Thank God for that our planet has people like this in it. Because if it weren't for decent human beings like Robbie Parker, if the world was full of nothing but these demons in human form who slake the lust for evil energy by causing heartache and misery everywhere they go in the world, this would not be a very happy place to live. So, yes, I do know there are a lot of anomalies in the Sandy Hook shooting event. But so far, every single one that I've looked into deeply, even the ones where I thought I can't explain this one. There's no explanation for this one. Everyone that I have looked into so far has ended up having a reasonable, rational explanation. For example, yesterday somebody asked me if the shooting is real, and I think this is a fair question. If the shooting is real, why does the FBI report for 2012 say that there were no murders in Newtown for that year? Well, first of all, the fact that question is even being asked, it goes back to Alex Jones peddling this conspiracy theory.
No one died in 2012 in Sandy Hook. It shows no homicides in that town.
I think even just on its face, the conspiracy theory here is totally illogical. It makes about as much sense that Robbie Parker was smiling because he forgot that CNN was standing there a few feet away from him. You know, that he broke character. The idea with this FBI statistic thing is that, I mean, think through this. Think through the argument here. The government is neck deep in carrying out a diabolical conspiracy, a massive conspiracy to trick the American people into believing that there was a mass shooting of children, which didn't actually happen. But for some reason, that same government thinks it's just too immoral to lie about the statistics in a report. Yeah, we carried out this terrible thing. We staged all these children's deaths and everything. But what, you think I'm going to lie on a report? I mean, this is going to be public. Since the FBI crime stats for Newtown don't include the 26 Newtown shooting victims, conspiracy theorists say this is proof that the shooting didn't happen. All right. Again, Alex Jones and his followers refuse to do research in an unbiased way, and that is why they don't understand the answer here. All they do is they look for the few pieces of evidence that seem to confirm their own theories. Then they stop looking, and in many cases they will outright fabricate the data, misinterpret it, manipulate it to fit their theories. So, what about these FBI stats? This is not complicated. Let me explain it to you. Yes, in 2012, the FBI report put out a compilation of crime statistics by city. The FBI did not personally go around to each city and gather the statistics. What they did was they gathered their statistics from reports that were produced by the individual states. The report that the FBI used for Connecticut was this one, entitled Crime in Connecticut, an annual report of the Uniform Crime Reporting Program. When you turn to the city of Newtown in the report, the number of murders for 2012 are listed as 0. Oh, nobody got shot. But wait a second. Pay attention here. What do you see next to the word murders? There is a footnote reference, number 3. If we look down at the footnote, what does the footnote say? It says that the number of murders, which is 0, does not include the 27 victims from the Newtown mass shooting, the 20 kids, the 6 adults, and the shooter. It doesn't include that. Why? Because those deaths don't fall under the city statistics. They fall under the state police statistics. Because it was not the city police who handled the case. It was the state police that handled the case. Because the FBI report uses the city police statistics, it does not report the 27 deaths or the 26 murders. That does not mean that the murders didn't happen. In fact, when you go back in this same report that says there are 0 deaths in Newtown for 2012, if you go back to the very first page, there is a dedication to the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre. That's right. The report that says there were 0 murders actually is dedicated to the people who were murdered. The dedication reads, "This publication is dedicated to the memory of the 20 children and 6 school administrators who were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut on December 14th, 2012. Does that help answer your question? The problem is that dedication and the fact that you can find in the report the murders listed on a different page. That doesn't support Alex Jones's conspiracy theory. That doesn't support the ridiculous armchair conspiracy theories of Wolfgang Halbig. Either these men are idiots who couldn't figure out basic information, who couldn't turn to the next page, who don't know what a footnote is, and couldn't figure it out, or they knew about it, but they didn't want to tell you because it wasn't very sexy. It didn't support their theories. Folks, there are a lot of these kinds of points. I could go through item by item by item and take these things that you have questions about and go through it, reason through it, do the research, show you the evidence, give you a rational explanation. But you know why that's pointless? Because for the people that want to believe that this was a government orchestrated event where no children were killed, it doesn't matter how much evidence there is. They aren't going to believe it. No matter how many parts to this shooting conspiracy get debunked, there's always going to be another one. Always going to be another what if. But what about this? But what about this? Never will be enough. And because it's never going to be enough, there's never going to be an end to the harassment of the innocent families who did lose children. And that's what gets me so agitated. It's the injustice of people who ought to be getting nothing but universal compassion are being subjected to horrid, horrible treatment. That they cannot heal from what they went through because they have buttholes who won't let them move past it, who keep telling them you're a liar, you're a liar, you never had a kid, you're a liar. Doesn't matter. I mean, no matter. There will be those who, for whatever reason, whatever twisted psychological need that they have, who are going to insist that Alex Jones, his theory that the school wasn't even open, that Wolfgang Halbig was saying, this school wasn't even open. It wasn't even functioning. There weren't even school children here. Never even open. They just decided to open it on the day of the shooting. They just decided to go in and set it all up and fix it all up just to carry out this crisis actor event. Doesn't matter to them what the evidence is. Doesn't matter that there are literally thousands of photos taken inside the school, outside the school children, the events, the parties, all of these things going on. Doesn't matter that the school has school yearbooks going back years before the shooting event. They're going to say, oh no, I believe that the school was fake. Fake school. Hashtag fake school.
I'm telling you, nobody died. It is the filthiest, the most deplorable school that I, as a principal, have ever seen.
Sure, it was only used as a cutout. It had been closed until right before they reopened it for this event.
These people, they think they're so smart. They think of themselves as having been red-pilled. I'm awake. It's the people who don't believe in this crisis thing. They're the dummies. They're the ones who are still asleep. I'm awake. The fact is, the people that make these claims, they don't know how to do research. I know how to do research. I got paid a good salary as an investigator. I know how to research. The research I had to do with cases of international money laundering and stuff like that, it had to be ironclad. It had to be material that could be held up in court, that would be challenged by other attorneys it had to hold up. I know how to research. I know what facts are. I could run circles around these nitwits that come up with oh, this is photoshopped, therefore that means the child never existed. I mean, the logical fallacy, the ridiculous nature of these conspiracy theories that the certain element of people come up with. You know, fine, you come up with an idea but that's the problem, is these people don't do their own research. They don't know how to do unbiased research. So instead, what they do is they leave it up to people like Alex Jones, who's not in it for the truth or the honesty, or what Alex Jones is about is what? Money. Alex Jones is in this for money, not the truth. He preys upon the gullible. And so instead of doing their own research, they leave it up to people like him and people like Wolfgang and whoever comes along and says, hey, I'm an expert, I know all this. And they don't look into it themselves. And here's the crazy thing. Even when you have people like Wolfgang and Alex Jones, people who recant and say, you know what? I was totally wrong.
Sandy Hook happened.
Absolutely.
You believe Sandy Hook happened.
Absolutely.
You believe Sandy Hook happened.
Absolutely.
I was totally wrong about this crisis actor stuff. There were no crisis actors. Yes, I know there were real children who died. No, Robbie Parker was not faking it. I was wrong about that. You know what's going to happen? Do you think the people that believe this conspiracy stuff are going to say, oh, Alex Jones, you admitted your mistake. All right, I guess I'll amend my own thinking. No, these people are not smart enough to do that. What they do is they just go even deeper into the conspiracy. Now it's not just that, oh, Alex Jones duped me. It's Alex Jones has been compromised, and the people who set up Sandy Hook have figured out how to take him and get him in on it. And so now Alex Jones is in on it. He's part of the conspiracy. And he's trying to keep the world from learning the truth, which is that no children were actually killed.
Conspiracies. It's very attractive to people that are schizophrenic. Schizophrenic people think everything's a conspiracy from top to bottom. Every single interaction that people have is some sort of a stage event that's trying to take them down or control this or mind control that.
If it weren't for these dangerous and mean-spirited things that the conspiracy theorists do to innocent people, you know, I would just say, look, to each his own. I pity the people who live in such a bizarre world, but you know what? People are free to think what they want. No harm done. That's not the case, though. Because these people do actually go beyond simply having an opinion, because they do go out there and cause harm. That's why I'm concerned, because we have not just like with the QAnon conspiracy. It's one thing to think, oh yeah, there's, 4D chess master, whatever. But that's not it. You have nuts that actually take weapons and armored vehicles, go out to the Hoover Dam and make threats that unless the government releases the documents that QAnon says exist, they're gonna hold up the bridge. Because of you've got these people who like the Pizzagate nuts that like Madison Welch who takes a gun and goes up to a pizza parlor, goes inside because he's hunting for a secret dungeon where Hillary Clinton and John Podesta keep their child sex slaves that, they also happen to eat from time to time when they get hungry. He goes out in there and pops off a round, scares the hell out of everybody, makes them think they're going to be victims of a mass shooting. This is the problem. It's just like Joe Rogan said, schizophrenics and conspiracy theories do not mix well. Some people simply can't handle it. And so because of all this, that's why I don't feel pity for these people. I feel the need to speak out against their craziness and warn the public. Yes, it is possible, guys, to go too far with your conspiracy theories. Yes, I know that it's typically the left that uses the term conspiracy theorist in a pejorative way to make fun of anybody who questions the state or the deep state or legitimate issues. I get it. But that doesn't mean there's not some truth to the idea that some people are tinfoil hat wearing nutters, because there are some, and they can be very dangerous. Yes, conspiracies most definitely exist. I talk about them all the time. Criminal conspiracies have been around for as long as mankind has been on Earth. But if you believe that a certain conspiracy is true, and you look into it, and you cannot come up, and nobody else looking into it can come up with a single shred of evidence that could be presented in court. I'm not talking about evidence like, oh, this is photoshopped. I mean, evidence that you could actually present in court because it's ironclad. If you can't come up with any ironclad evidence that would pass muster in a court of law, guys, you need to chill out, back off, and either keep researching until you find legitimate evidence, or until you realize, like the Democrats have realized with their Russiagate probe, that your theory simply isn't true, no matter how badly you want it to be. Republicans are quick to talk about how Russiagate theory was so bad. You hear the talking point. Millions of dollars spent, 2 years, and nothing to show for it. This was terrible for America. But then they'll turn around and say, but it's okay to harass these families, even though we don't have a shred of evidence that these families are crisis actors. Think. Use your brains. You guys are smart out there. Don't let the crazy element that's out there, the Alex Joneses of the world, who do weaponize the ignorant group, don't let that convince you that these people are the majority. The silent majority, we're not morons. The silent majority, we may not speak out as much. It may be the crazies that are the loudest and get the most social media attention. But they're not the majority. Stay with what if your gut tells you something's crazy, it probably is. Research. Truth matters. Truth, factual analysis, it really does matter. That's what the purpose of my channel is not to give you just my theories, not to push and peddle conspiracy theories, but to take real crimes, find the evidence, present the evidence, and let you guys judge what you want to think of it. And that's what I say about this video. Take it the way you want to. Just remember, don't knock these families. I feel empathy toward them, and I will defend them on my channel. Thank you guys for watching. For Blackstone Intelligence, I'm Jake Morphonios.
If you appreciate hard-hitting investigative journalism that you won't get from the mainstream media, then please support Jake's research and analysis at patreon.com/endtimesnewsreport, paypal.me/endtimesnewsreport, or send a check or money order to Jake Morphonios, P.O. Box 1333, Kernersville, North Carolina 27285.
Сергей Лавров отметил в интервью, что именно чинуши препятствуют этому.
Могло стоять ЦРУ.
Ясно, что он заранее знал об этих атаках.
11 сентября.
У меня
есть страхового договора.
Как только торговый этажный небоскреб, здание номер 7.
Джейк Мафониус, основатель Blackstone Intelligence, управляет глобальной сетью человеческого интеллекта. Мафониуса ищет из-за его опыта в ближневосточных делах, в том числе связи между ЦРУ и террористическими группами.
Расстрел в Лас-Вегасе стал самым массовым убийством в истории США.
Возможно, лас-вегасский стрелок Стивен Пэддок,
почтенному, обеспеченному господину.
В докладе ЦРУ, опубликованном следователем Джейком Мафониусом, были обнаружены секретные операции по запуску бомбы.